All right, we're back with another Q&A video, and I thank you all for tuning in. I hope everyone's doing well. As for me, I've been getting bombarded with messages and stories from a lot of people, and I'm trying to review it all and figure out how I want to proceed. Okay, let's get started. Has being shelved driven someone to cooperate with law enforcement as a payback? I'm sure this has taken place. I believe Michael DiLeonardo was shelved prior to cooperating, but I really don't know if that's what motivated him or not. Why do you think they waited and didn't take out Henry Hill when he got busted for the coke? I honestly don't know. What I can say is, I think that had Henry Hill not been pulled off the street when he did, it would have been a very different outcome for him, and they definitely would have killed him. Did you ever meet the Reaper, or was he a little before your time? If yes, what was your impression of him? No, Greg Scarpa was before my time in that life. I did know guys who were around him, like Danny Capaldo, who's now a Colombo member himself, and from things he said, Scarpa was a stone-cold killer who feared nothing or nobody. Was it common when a made guy gets locked up for guys to swoop in and take their legal and illegal businesses? What could they do to stop it? Typically, when a guy knows he's going away, he makes arrangements for someone to watch over his interests. Have there been guys who went away and had things and associates taken from them? Yes, but it usually doesn't happen and shouldn't. Any insights or thoughts about the Indimo Papadillo murder? Also, why would Michael follow in his brother's footsteps, knowing how treacherous the mob life is? Papadillo was the Lucchese's acting boss in the 1970s, and in September 1976, he was shot to death as he walked across the street from his home in Lido Beach. Ironically, he was going to check out a parked car that looked suspicious, a car that the shooters happened to be sitting in. His brother Michael also became a Lucchese member and was someone who was big in the garment center. He too would be targeted and killed by the Lucchese family in May 1989. If you look at mob history, there are an untold amount of sons, brothers, etc., who became members despite their loved ones being killed by the mob. Vito Genovese failed to kill Costello, led to the Appalachian fiasco and coast-to-coast headline news. Instead of quietly getting rid of Valachi, he gave him a heads up by giving him the kiss of death, resulting in Valachi being the first gangster to appear on live national TV and revealing all about Cosa Nostra, as well as Genovese being convicted for dealing drugs and dying in prison. Surely, this makes him the most disastrous boss of all of them. Obviously, Genovese made a lot of poor choices and ultimately paid for it in the end. However, it wasn't his fault that the hit on Costello failed. He only gave the order. But as far as bosses go, his reign as a boss was a short one. Vic Amuso should also be looked at as a disastrous boss. The reason being via his chosen underboss, Gaspipe. And Vic is just as responsible for the destruction of the Lucchese family, as well as its mindset, like falsely labeling its members. Nepotism is a real thing. Many members get their kids and close relatives proposed for membership. Yes, I understand they still have to prove themselves. However, how hard is it for someone who is not related to a member to get made themselves? You're correct, nepotism exists, but the mob on a whole are made up of people who knew people or are related to people, as you suggested. But a great deal of its members are not related to anyone, myself included, and we've all become members. What's the most petty beef that you've heard about that made it up to the administration? I don't remember any beefs that were petty in nature going to that level. What comes close was Matty Madonna taking an associate away from Johnny Sideburns and giving the guy to Patty Delarosa. Meanwhile, Sideburns ended up with the guy anyway because Patty no longer wanted him. Petty, if you ask me. I have read New England and the Bonanno families sometimes use the term king's man or king's captain, referring to a soldier or captain who reported directly to the boss. Did you ever hear this term used? No, I've never heard this term used during my time in the life. I've heard a guy being directly with Matty or someone being directly with Joe DiNapoli or Consigliere, but the word king never was mentioned. Here's a question outside of YouTube. Would a member face consequences for having dealings with a sex offender? I would have to say it's not a good look if a member was dealing in any way with the sex offender. Not sure what the consequences would be, but it would definitely be viewed in a negative way. Well, there's some guys in the life that you only knew their nickname and not their real name. Yes, it's very common to only know a guy's nickname. And I'll use Johnny Sideburns as an example. Most guys didn't know his last name. The next question is also from outside of YouTube and coincidentally has to do with Johnny Sideburns. Did you feel bad for Johnny Sideburns when you heard that he got shelved? No, I did not. For starters, I always knew he would eventually be shelved. And I think at his age, they actually did him a favor. If you haven't liked this video yet, please take the time now and give it a like, as it helps with YouTube's algorithm. Anyone who'd like to show their appreciation for videos like this, or more importantly, help me to continue making them, you can donate with the Super Thanks icon down below, or through the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. Let me quickly mention my blog, also called Sitdownnews, especially for those of you who still enjoy reading. The site can be found at sitdownnews.com and is a paid subscription. And for the final question, looking back now, what was the first sign that the mafia was beginning to change in a way that most members didn't recognize until it was too late? I believe that started with violating the no drug rule, and every family did. Turning a blind eye for money to one rule leads to the violation of the others. And I know viewers have heard me say this over and over. The rules were put in effect for a reason. The mob, or rather a family, can't just pick and choose which rules they follow and which ones they overlook. But at this point, it's all too late. The damage is done.